Wyoming Territory, 1882. The wind cut across the plains like a knife, slicing through Samuel Dawson's worn leather coat as he rode toward the smoldering remains of the Zimmerman homestead. At 26, Sam had already seen enough frontier tragedy to last several lifetimes. The charred timbers and scattered belongings told the familiar story. Another family who couldn't survive the unforgiving West. "Damned foolish to bring a family out here," he muttered, dismounting to inspect the ruins. His steel-blue eyes narrowed against the bitter wind. Life on the frontier had taught Sam one immutable truth. Love was a luxury that got people killed. The West demanded solitude, strength, vigilance, not the vulnerability of attachment. Everyone he'd ever cared for had been taken by disease, outlaws, or the elements. Better to ride alone, trust no one, and expect nothing but the next sunrise. Sam knelt, running his fingers through the cold ashes. 3 days old, at least. He stood, brushing his hands on his denims, adjusting the colt at his hip. His ranch 5 miles south needed tending, cattle needed moving before winter. That was real. That was certain. Not like the phantom promise of companionship that lured fools to their deaths. Just passing through. He reminded himself, a mantra repeated across 7 years of drifting. Even his small ranch felt temporary, a place to winter before the inevitable push onward. Attachment meant weakness. Weakness meant death. He climbed back into the saddle, giving the ruins one final glance. The setting sun cast long shadows across what had once been someone's dream of a future. Sam knew better. The frontier wasn't a place for dreams, or futures, or family. It was a place to survive, one day at a time, alone. "Move on, Domino," he urged his black stallion forward. The horse, his only companion these 7 years, understood him better than any human ever could. Animals asked nothing but basic care. They didn't need promises. They didn't break your heart. The wind carried a sound that stopped him cold, a woman's voice, distant but clear, singing a lullaby. Sam's hand instinctively moved to his colt. Voices where none should be meant trouble. He turned Domino toward the sound, approaching with caution born of harsh experience. Beyond a stand of cottonwoods along the creek bed, he spotted a small camp. A covered wagon, weathered but intact, stood beside a modest fire. And beside that fire sat a young woman, perhaps 20 years old, her golden hair catching the last rays of sunlight as she cradled something in her arms. When Sam's shadow fell across her camp, she looked up without surprise or fear, just calm assessment. Her deep green eyes reflected firelight and something else, a determined spark that caught him off guard. "Evening, ma'am," Sam said, keeping his distance. "Dangerous country to be camping alone." "I'm hardly alone," she replied, gesturing to the bundle in her arms. A baby, no more than 6 months old, sleeping peacefully. "My brother's hunting. Should be back shortly." Sam took in the scene with a practiced eye. The wagon showed signs of a long journey, but was well maintained. The camp was organized efficiently. Still, a woman, baby, and single man wouldn't last long in this territory. "Your husband?" he asked, though he noted no wedding band. "Lost him at Fort Laramie. Fever." She stated it plainly, without seeking sympathy. "I'm Penelope Zimmerman. This is my daughter, Hope." The name struck him like a physical blow. "Zimmerman? The homestead up north. My uncle's family." Her voice remained steady, though her fingers tightened around the sleeping child. "We were heading to join them." Sam removed his hat, a gesture of respect he rarely bothered with anymore. "I'm sorry to tell you, but that homestead is gone. Burned. No survivors that I could see." Penelope's composure faltered only briefly, a catch of breath, a momentary closing of her eyes, before she nodded. "I feared as much. We saw the smoke yesterday, but I hoped. You should turn back. Head east. This country isn't kind to women and children." She looked at him then, really looked at him, her gaze uncomfortably direct. "And where exactly should I go, Mr. Dawson?" "Samuel Dawson." "Where should I go, Mr. Dawson?" "Back to Pennsylvania, where my parents died of consumption? To the orphanage where I was raised? Or perhaps to my late husband's family, who made it clear they had no interest in an unexpected wife and child?" The baby stirred, and Penelope automatically adjusted her hold, soothing the child without breaking eye contact with Sam. "This land is what we have," she continued. "The deed my uncle sent is all we own in this world." Sam shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't his problem. He'd learned long ago that getting involved only led to pain. The deed's worthless if you can't work the land. And you can't. I disagree. The calm certainty in her voice surprised him. My brother and I can rebuild. We've done it before. A rustling from the trees announced the arrival of a young man, perhaps 17, carrying 2 rabbits. His suspicious glance at Sam spoke volumes about life on the trail. Peter, Penelope said, this is Mr. Dawson. He brings news about Uncle Edward's homestead. The young man's face fell as Sam briefly explained what he'd found. When he finished, an uncomfortable silence fell over the camp. You're welcome to share our supper, Penelope finally offered, small though it may be. Every instinct told Sam to refuse, to mount up and ride away from these doomed people. Instead, he heard himself say, I have a ranch 5 miles south. You can shelter there while you decide your next move. The words surprised him as much as them. He never invited strangers to his land. Never. We don't take charity, Peter said stiffly. It's not charity, Sam replied. It's common sense. Winter's coming. You need shelter. I need hands for the season. Fair exchange. Penelope studied him with those unervingly direct eyes. Why would you help strangers, Mr. Dawson? The question cut too close to feelings Sam had buried years ago. Don't mistake practicality for kindness, ma'am. This territory doesn't allow for either. Yet as they packed up camp and followed him toward his ranch in the gathering darkness, Sam couldn't escape the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in his carefully ordered world. Something that felt dangerously like responsibility. The Dawson Ranch was modest but solid, a 2-room cabin, barn, corral, and small bunkhouse that had never housed more than Sam himself. As winter settled over the Wyoming Territory, the unexpected arrangement developed its own rhythm. Peter proved himself capable with horses and eager to learn ranching. Penelope transformed the Spartan cabin with small touches, curtains fashioned from spare fabric, wildflowers preserved in jars, the constant aroma of fresh bread. Sam maintained his distance, spending long days working the property, taking his meals quickly before retreating to the bunkhouse he'd insisted the siblings take the cabin. But the boundaries he established eroded with each passing day, first with Hope's delighted gurgles when he entered the room, then with Penelope's persistent questions about ranching, and finally with the conversations that stretched past sunset as snow piled against the windows. On a bitter December evening, trapped indoors by a howling blizzard, Sam found himself seated across from Penelope at the kitchen table, the baby sleeping in a makeshift cradle nearby, Peter already retired to bed. You never speak of your past, Penelope observed, mending one of her brother's shirts by lamplight. Sam stiffened. Not much to tell. Everyone has a story, Mr. Dawson. Her fingers never paused in their precise movements. Sam, he corrected, surprising himself. After 3 weeks, he was still Mr. Dawson to her, a distance he'd deliberately maintained. She smiled slightly, acknowledging the shift. Sam, then, everyone has a story. Something about the quiet room, the storm's isolation, and her steady presence loosened his carefully guarded words. Lost my parents in a Comanche raid when I was 14. Rode with the cattle drives until I saved enough for this place. Nothing remarkable. And no one to share it with, she said softly. Not a question. The frontier's no place for attachments. He met her eyes, challenging. Look around you. Every homestead that fails, every widow made, every orphan created, all because someone believed love could survive out here. Yet people keep trying, she countered. My uncle, your neighbors, me. And look where it got your uncle, Sam interrupted. Look where it got you, stranded with a baby in hostile territory. Is it the territory that's hostile, or just your view of it? Penelope set down her mending, her green eyes reflecting the lamplight. I've seen beauty here too. The sunrise over the plains, the wildflowers after rain, the way communities gather for barn raisings and harvests. Temporary comforts before the next disaster. She studied him with that direct gaze that always made him uncomfortable. You speak like a man who's tried love and found it wanting. Sam stood abruptly, moving to stoke the fire. I speak like a man who's survived by avoiding it entirely. Then you've survived, but have you lived? The simple question hung in the air between them. He turned to answer, but the words died in his throat. Lamplight gilded her golden hair, cascading loose over her shoulders now instead of in its usual practical braid. Her green eyes held no judgment, only genuine curiosity. In that moment, she looked like everything the frontier tried to destroy: beauty, gentleness, hope. "I'm alive," he finally said. "That's enough." Penelope rose, gathering her mending. "Perhaps, but I've known both, Sam. I've loved and lost, and survived that too. And I can tell you with certainty, merely surviving is not enough." She moved to check on Hope, then paused at the door to her room. "Thank you for the conversation. Good night." Long after she'd gone, Sam remained by the fire, her words echoing uncomfortably through his mind. He'd built his entire existence around the belief that emotional isolation was the only safe path through frontier life. Yet here was this woman who had suffered losses equal to his own, still believing in connection and possibility. For the first time in years, he wondered if he might be wrong. By February, the unexpected arrangement had become a partnership neither had anticipated. Sam taught Peter cattle management and repair skills. Penelope's cooking transformed their meals from sustenance to pleasure. Hope grew steadily, adding babbling conversations to her repertoire. Sam found himself lingering in the cabin, inventing reasons to be near the small family. He caught himself watching Penelope, the way she hummed while kneading bread, how she laughed at Peter's jokes, the tenderness with which she cared for Hope. Each observation chipped away at his carefully constructed armor. The thaw came early that year, bringing with it riders from town with news and mail. Among the letters was one addressed to Penelope, bearing an official seal. Sam found her by the creek that afternoon, the letter open in her lap, her expression troubled. "Bad news?" he asked, approaching carefully. She glanced up, offering a tight smile. "Not exactly. It's from the land office. My uncle's property can still be claimed by family. Peter and I qualify." Something cold settled in Sam's chest. "You'll be leaving then?" "We discussed rebuilding," she reminded him. "That was always the plan. Before winter, before." He stopped, unsure how to describe what had developed between them over the months. Penelope rose, letter in hand. "Before what, Sam? Before we imposed on your solitude? Before Hope became attached to you? Before I—" She looked away, collecting herself. "You can't seriously be considering taking a baby to an isolated homestead," he said, more harshly than intended. "The nearest neighbor would be miles away. No help if you're attacked, if someone falls ill, if—" "People do it every day," she interrupted. "Women stronger than me have built lives from nothing on this frontier, and died trying." The fear that had been building for weeks erupted. "Every day out here is borrowed time, Penelope. Every attachment is just setting yourself up for loss." Her eyes flashed. "Is that what we are to you? A potential loss to avoid? Is that why you keep yourself locked away in that bunkhouse instead of acknowledging what's happening between us?" The direct challenge left him speechless. "I've watched you with Hope," she continued more gently. "I've seen how you look at her, like she's a miracle you're afraid to touch. I've noticed how you find reasons to talk with Peter about his future, giving him the guidance he lost when our father died. And I've felt how you look at me when you think I won't notice." Sam turned away, unable to face the truth in her words. "You deserve better than this life. Than me. Shouldn't that be my choice?" She moved closer, close enough that he could smell the lavender she kept among her clothes. "I've lost a husband, parents, now my uncle's family. I understand risk, Sam. I understand pain. What I don't understand is refusing to live because you fear death. It's not that simple." "It is," she insisted. "You're hiding. Not just from me, but from yourself." The accusation struck deeper than she could know. "I'm not meant for this, Penelope. For family. For—" he couldn't say the word. "For love," she finished for him. Her hand, work-roughened but gentle, touched his arm. "No one is born knowing how. It's learned through practice, through risk, through choice." Before he could respond, a rider approached at speed from the direction of town. Sam instinctively stepped in front of Penelope, hand moving to his sidearm. The rider, one of the merchants from town, reined in his lathered horse. "Dawson, thought you should know. Harlan's gang was spotted headed this way. Word is they're looking to settle scores with homesteaders who testified against them last fall." Ice flooded Sam's veins. "Zimmerman. Edward Zimmerman testified at that trial." The merchant nodded grimly. 3 homesteads burned already. They're asking for Zimmerman's by name." Penelope's face went pale. "They killed my uncle's family. And they'll come here next when they hear his kin are staying with me," Sam said. "How many riders?" 6, all armed. They'll be here by morning. Sam nodded. Thanks for the warning. Ride on. As the messenger departed, Sam's mind raced through options. None good. Pack only what you need. I'll hitch the wagon. You need to be gone within the hour. Gone. Penelope looked bewildered. Where? South. The territorial capital. You'll be safe there until— I'm not running, she interrupted. This is our home now. This isn't a discussion, Sam snapped. These men are killers. They won't hesitate to burn everything to the ground with you inside. Then we stand together. The 3 of us against 6. The 2 of us, Sam corrected. Peter's a boy with a hunting rifle. These are hardened outlaws. He gripped her shoulders. Please, Penelope. I can't, he swallowed hard. I can't lose you too. The admission hung between them, unplanned and raw. Then don't send us away, she said softly. Fight with us, not for us. Sam knew he should insist, should force them to leave if necessary. Instead, he felt the walls he'd built around his heart crumbling at her courage, her determination to stand beside him rather than behind him. You'll do exactly as I say, he finally conceded. No heroics. If things go badly, you take hope and ride. Promise me. Her relief was palpable. I promise. They spent the afternoon in grim preparation, boarding windows, positioning rifles at strategic points, sending Peter to hide supplies in the root cellar where Penelope and Hope would shelter if shooting started. As darkness fell, Sam found himself alone with Penelope in the kitchen, Hope asleep in her cradle. Why didn't you leave when you had the chance? He asked quietly. You could be miles away by now. Penelope looked up from loading cartridges into a belt. For the same reason you're risking your life for us instead of riding out alone. And what reason is that? Because when it matters, when everything is stripped away, we choose what we love. She set down the ammunition and faced him directly. I choose this place. I choose Hope's future here. I choose you, Sam Dawson, though you're too stubborn to see your own worth. The simplicity of her declaration left him speechless. 7 years of emotional isolation cracked open in that moment, revealing the loneliness he'd denied, the yearning he'd buried. I'm not meant for love, the cowboy confessed, voice rough with emotion. I don't know how. She stepped closer, her hand finding his cheek. Then I'll teach you how. When their lips met, it felt like coming home to a place he'd never been. His arms encircled her waist, pulling her closer as years of carefully maintained distance collapsed into the warm certainty of her embrace. If we survive tomorrow, he murmured against her hair, we have much to discuss. She looked up at him, determination and affection mingled in her gaze. When we survive tomorrow, not if. Dawn broke cold and clear. Sam had spent the night on the porch, watching the eastern approach. Peter joined him as the first light crested the distant hills, rifle in hand, face solemn beyond his 17 years. They'll come from the east, Sam explained, using the sun at their backs. Stay inside with your sister. Only fire if they breach the house. Peter nodded, then asked the question Sam had been dreading. If you fall, what should we do? Run. The cellar has supplies for 3 days. Use the back trail through the cottonwoods. Sam gripped the young man's shoulder. But it won't come to that. By mid-morning, the riders appeared on the horizon. 6 men, heavily armed, approaching with the confidence of those who expected little resistance. Sam positioned himself on the porch, rifle visible but not raised. Stay in the cellar until I call, he reminded Penelope, who held Hope close to her chest. Her kiss was fierce and brief before she disappeared into the house. The riders halted 30 yards out. Their leader, a scarred man Sam recognized as James Harlan himself, called out. We're looking for Zimmermans. Heard they might be sheltering here. Heard wrong, Sam replied evenly. No one here by that name. A second rider spat. Town gossip says different. Says you took in a pretty widow and her brother. Zimmermans, clear as day. Whoever was here moved on weeks ago, Sam lied. I'm alone, as I prefer it. Harlan's eyes narrowed. Search the house, boys. Burn it if you have to. Sam leveled his Winchester. That would be unwise. The standoff stretched taut as bowstring, 6 against 1. The odds were impossible, but Sam had long ago accepted that death would find him alone. At least this way, he was choosing something worth dying for. Last chance, Dawson, Harlan warned. Step aside or go down fighting. A movement at the window caught Sam's peripheral vision. Peter, taking position as they'd planned. And then, unexpectedly, The door opened behind him. Penelope stepped onto the porch, Hope in her arms. "Get back inside," Sam hissed, but she ignored him, coming to stand beside him. "I'm Penelope Zimmerman," she called out clearly. "Edward Zimmerman was my uncle. If you're here for vengeance, take it up with me, not with this man who's given us shelter." Harlan's grin turned predatory. "Well, now that's more like it. Boys, looks like we found what we're after." "You're also looking at more guns than you expected," came a new voice from the side of the house. Sam turned in surprise to see Sheriff Mills and 4 deputies emerging from cover, rifles trained on the outlaws. "Lay down your weapons, Harlan," Mills ordered. "You're surrounded." The outlaws glanced around, realizing they'd ridden into a trap. After a tense moment, Harlan cursed and dropped his gun. The others reluctantly followed suit. As the deputies moved in to arrest the gang, Sam turned to Penelope in confusion. "How?" "Peter slipped out last night," she explained, shifting Hope to her other arm. "I knew you'd never agree to send for help, so I made the decision myself. We fight together, remember?" Relief and indignation warred within him. "You promised to stay in the cellar." "I promised not to be heroic," she countered. "Standing beside the man I love isn't heroism. It's where I belong." The simple declaration stripped away his last defenses. In full view of the sheriff and his men, Sam pulled Penelope and Hope into his arms, no longer caring who witnessed his vulnerability. "Don't ever do that again," he murmured against her hair. She leaned back to meet his gaze, challenge in her eyes. "Then don't ever try to face danger alone again. That's not how love works." Spring came early that year, painting the Wyoming plains with wildflowers and new grass. The Dawson Ranch buzzed with activity as neighbors gathered for what many were calling the most anticipated event in the county's history. Sam stood nervously inside the newly expanded cabin, Peter helping him with his tie. Through the window, he could see the arbor they'd constructed, festooned with wild roses and ribbon. "Nervous?" Peter asked, grinning at his soon-to-be brother-in-law's discomfort. "Terrified," Sam admitted. "Still can't believe she said yes." "She's been saying yes since the day you met," Peter pointed out. "You just weren't listening." The truth of that observation struck Sam deeply. How many times had Penelope offered connection while he'd retreated into isolation? How many opportunities had he missed before finally opening his heart? "Ready?" Sheriff Mills appeared at the door, serving as both witness and unofficial security. With Harlan's gang awaiting trial, no one was taking chances. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of emotion for Sam. He would later remember only fragments. Hope babbling happily from a neighbor woman's lap. The look in Penelope's eyes as she walked toward him in her mother's restored wedding dress. The weight of the ring as he slid it onto her finger. What he would never forget were her vows, spoken clearly for all to hear. "I choose you, Samuel Dawson, not despite your scars, but because of the strength they represent. I choose the life we'll build together on this land that has seen both our sorrows and our joys. I choose to teach you love every day, through all seasons, until death and beyond." When his turn came, the words he'd struggled to write flowed naturally. "I stand before you a changed man, Penelope Zimmerman. Where I once saw only danger in attachment, you showed me the greater danger in isolation. Where I built walls, you built bridges. I offer you my protection, my partnership, and my heart, imperfect but entirely yours. I choose love over fear, life over mere survival, and you over solitude, every day for the rest of our lives." As the small gathering celebrated with a feast spread across tables in the yard, Sam found a quiet moment with his new wife near the creek where they'd first acknowledged their feelings. "Your uncle's land," he said, taking her hands in his. "I had Peter file paperwork. It's still yours if you want it." Penelope looked surprised. "You'd leave this place?" "After everything." Sam shook his head. "Not leave. Expand. The properties could be connected with the right purchases in between. Room enough for Peter to have his own place someday, for Hope to run free, for—" He hesitated, then finished, "for more children, if you want it." Her smile was radiant. "You're planning a future. A real one." "I'm learning," he admitted. "I spent years convinced the frontier allowed only for survival, never for dreams. You taught me differently." "We taught each other," she corrected, moving into his embrace. "That's how love works." Over her shoulder, Sam watched Hope toddle toward them, Peter keeping careful watch over his niece. Beyond them stretched the Wyoming plains, still harsh, still dangerous, but no longer empty. "I'm not meant for love," the cowboy had once confessed. She had replied, "Then I'll teach you how." And she had, through patience and courage, through standing beside him rather than behind him, through choosing connection over safety. In return, he had learned to offer not just protection but partnership, not just survival but a shared life worth living. Together, they had built something the frontier could not break, a family bound by choice, a love stronger than fear, and a home that would stand against whatever storms might come.